So we saw how we could pull in data about the number of babies registered and join that information with our name data frame for John in order to calculate the percentage popularity of the name. But this time, what if we want to compare the popularity of the name Joan to the name John for male babies and female babies? Well, in that case, we don't really want to join the two sets together. What we want to do is basically what you would do with a union all in SQL. We want to concatenate the rows from the John data with matching rows from a Joan search. So let's look at doing that. So I'm going to go up to, I'm going to do this before I do the join with babies registered, because I'm going to want to join both the Joan data and the John data with the total number of babies registered and calculate percentage for everything. So let me go up to here, and I'm going to go ahead and add a cell there. And then I'm going to copy that. Whoops. I'm going to copy this query that was fetching babies registered. And actually what I want is the query for John. So let me grab that. So here's the query for John. And then let me find the cell that I just added. It's right here. And then let's say this is Joan. Maybe Joan data frame. And it's going to look exactly the same as the query for John, except it's going to look for Joan. And then let's look at Joan. And so here's my Joan data. And then let's look at the DF, which should be my John data. I'm going to have to rerun all of this stuff. So let me forget about having DF as a data frame. Let me go ahead and do John is here. So let's print John. And by the way, if you use display, it will go ahead and it will do that HTML formatting. So let me go ahead and display Joan and then display John. Okay, so here's my Joan data, and there's my John data, and you'll notice that they have the same columns, and that's going to make it easier to concatenate everything together. So the operation to join them, basically union all, is called concat, and it's a static method of the pandas library. So if you were doing a join, you'd do something like john.join Joan. Boy, that's hard to say. John.join Joan, you would say. But if you want to concatenate it, what you do is you say pd.concat, and then you give it a list of the data frames that you want to concatenate together. So John and Joan. And this is going to return a new data frame that has both things in it. So up at the top, here's my Joan stuff from 1915 on up. And then at the bottom, here's my Joan stuff up to 2014. Now, once again, this isn't modifying anything in place. So if I want to use this data frame for something, I have to go ahead and save it. So let's say names is equal to that. And then let's go ahead and display names. And then let's go ahead and plot it. So in order to plot this, what I'm going to want this time is I'm going to want John female, John male, Joan female, Joan male as 4 separate columns in wide data. And I'm going to want to have the year for the index. And then the value is going to be name count. So it's just like what I was doing when I was pivoting before, except now I want the columns to come from a combination of name and gender instead of just gender. So let's look at names.pivot, and then index is still going to be year. Columns now is going to be a list of name and gender. And then values is going to be name count. So if I execute that, you'll see I have two John columns, one for F and one for M, and two Joan columns, one for F and one for M, and I have the year. I can go ahead and plot this right now. And I end up with 4 trends, but the only ones that are really non-zero, that are big enough to actually see the shape of, are Joan female and John male, because these are pretty unisex, not unisex names, the opposite of unisex names. So let's go ahead and before I clean this up, I want to actually adjust for babies registered here. So I don't actually need this right now. So I have names, I get babies registered, and then here, instead of doing this to DF, I want to go ahead and do it to names. And then we'll print names. And then this is still babies registered, and we'll print babies registered. So there's my names with John and Joan. And then for this one, instead of df.join, it's going to be names is names.join. And then names.percent is name sub name count divided by name subtotal. And so now I have percent for all the John names and the Joan names. And then this last bit is going to be reset index pivot on name and gender. And then values are from percent with plot. And actually that should not have been df, that should have been names. There. So just to demonstrate that this is actually working, let's go and redo these queries with some more unisex appropriate names so that we have some values for both the male and female trends. Actually, let's do, I think it'd be interesting to do Jesse with an IE versus Jesse with a Y. Or let's actually Billy. Let's do Billy versus Billy. So there's some Billies, and we concatenate them. Babies registered. Our join. Columns overlap, but no suffix specified. I think I messed something up here. Yeah, I didn't do this one. Okay, so now I did that one. Because it was showing John before instead of Billy. So now I did that one, and I had my Billy with a Y and Billy with an IE, and then plot. Okay, so that's interesting. So they all have a peak sort of around the same time, around 1930 plus or minus. But the female Billy with IE peaks a little tiny bit earlier than Billy with a Y for males. And maybe this is Billie Holiday. I have to actually check whether this is before or after that. Anyway, so the concatenate is working. And then once I've concatenated both of those data frames together into one data frame, everything else I was doing with the join just continues to work correctly.